So mark your own. Who's my favorite student? Sadly, it's none of you. It's good old Ann Serkey. She gets perfect. So solve for the missing variables. Remember DFIC, 2 marks each. Okay. First thing you have to be able to do is figure out which equation we're trying to find. The equation I'm going to use in number one is this one, VF equals VI plus AT. And then I'm going to get the T by itself. How would I get the T by itself? Well, the T is right there. I guess the VF would just drop down like a domino. Then what? Quinn? How? I would minus the VI. Then what? Gabor? That equals T. Then I would plug in the numbers. VF is 24.6 minus 3.2 divided by 2.5. Is this a fraction? I need brackets around the top unless I have the fancy 2-level fraction button. 24.6 minus 3.2, close bracket, divided by 2.5. Did y'all get 8.56? Units, it's time. Seconds. Okay. If you got that, I would give you 2 out of 2. Otherwise, this is how I will mark these for the rest of the year. I would give you a half mark if I saw that equation. If you can just find the equation, you get half a mark. I would give you 1 mark if you successfully got the T by itself. So that's another half mark for a total of 1 mark. I would give you a half mark for the numbers and a half mark for the answer. What I really want you to realize here, Hannah, is I don't care that much about the correct answer. That's worth half out of 2. It's worth 1/4 of 75% to me, as far as I'm concerned, Kyle, is method and approach and doing that correctly. Okay? And we'll mark that. It'll be that way for the rest of this quiz. So number 2, they gave me a VI, an A, a T, and a D. I think the equation that I'm going to use is D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. Is that correct? I need to get the D by itself. Ha-ha! Already is. Bonus. So now it's just going to be plug and chug. It's going to be VI negative 8.5. I guess we started out going backwards, or we started out falling downwards. T, 19, plus 0.5, 2.5. We're accelerating forwards. 19 squared. So I guess this, we started out going backwards really fast, but we're accelerating forwards, so we're slowing down. At some point we would have changed direction, and then I have a feeling we might have ended up in front of where we started. I think, Paige, we might get a positive answer. You got the take-home quiz? Didn't do it? Okay, so you can follow along. That's okay. Well, not okay, but okay. You know what I mean. Negative 8.5 times 19 plus 0.5, 0.5 times 2.5 times 19. Don't forget the squared. Y'all get 289.75? If I go to 3 sig figs, 290? If you wrote the whole thing, I'm not going to freak out, but I'll go to 3 sig figs, 290. I'll even put a dot there to make it 3 sig figs. Units. I guess this time I would give you 1 whole mark for that, because by finding the equation, you also already got the thing by itself. Half mark for the numbers, half mark for the answer. Number 3, I think it's going to be the same equation, D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. But now I'm going to get the VI by itself. Well, how am I going to do that? Paige, what side is the VI on? So what's going to drop down? Yep. What's right next to the VI? That T is timesing. I will divide by T, but it's reversed that mess. Also, this 0.5 AT squared is plussing. How will I move the 0.5 AT squared over? So I'm going to minus the 0.5 AT squared, divide by T. That equals VI. Yet another equation. Don't memorize it. Teaching you how to derive it. it's going to be negative 70. What does negative 70 mean for D? I guess we ended up behind or below from where we started. I need more context, but that's how I would interpret that, Tyson. We either ended up behind us or below us. Minus 0.5, negative 4.8, 24 squared, all over 24. Bracket negative 70 minus 0.5 times negative 4.8 times 24 squared. What does a negative acceleration mean? We're slowing down or we're accelerating downwards. Divided by 24, or accelerating backwards. Y'all get 54.7? So we started out going forwards, but we accelerated backwards, which meant we slowed down and then eventually started going backwards, because after 24 seconds, we actually ended up behind from where we started. If we drew a picture, it would have gone like that. We would have ended up somewhere behind from where we started. What did I say the answer was? 50-something something? 54.7? Units, it's a velocity. Okay, if you have the wrong units or missing units, I would take a half mark off. Otherwise, again, half mark, half mark, half mark, half mark. Number 4, I think we're going to use VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. I think. I want to get the VF by itself, Odetta. Not quite. It's almost by itself. I need to get rid of a squared. So how do I do that? Square root both sides. That's going to give me VF equals the square root of VI squared plus 2AD. Now let's stick in numbers. VF is going to be the square root of 28 squared plus 2 times 9.8 times 152. You can do this a couple of ways. If you have a square root that automatically opens a bracket, you can do this in one step. Or if you have the two-level fraction button, probably when you hit square root on your calculator, it does a little indent thing. I know a lot of calculators don't have that, so I have the habit of typing what's inside the square root. And then I typically go square root answer button. That's because I know all calculators can handle that. But again, if your calculator is better than that, then I think you're okay. 61.3, is that right? Units, it's a velocity. Again, half mark for that, half mark for square rooting, half mark for the numbers, and a half mark for the answer. Number 5, getting the A by itself. VF squared equals VI squared plus 2AD. Victor, my friend, what side is the A on? So what's going to drop down like a domino? Don't forget the squared. I was going to bark at you, but you caught yourself. Good. And then I'm going to do my adding and subtracting first. So I think I'm going to minus the VI squared over. Yeah. And then I think I'm going to divide by 2D. That's going to give me A. It's going to be 22 squared minus 40 squared. You know what I just noticed? V final is less than V initial. I think I'm slowing down. I bet you I'm going to get a negative acceleration here. All over 2 times 96. So if I get a negative acceleration, I won't freak out. I'll relax. Brackets around the top because there's more than one thing on the top, and brackets around the bottom because there's more than one thing on the bottom. Do y'all get negative 5.81? Units, Victor, it's an acceleration. Yeah. What if you blanked out? Hopefully you'll be clever enough to go look and notice, oh, here's an acceleration and the units are meters per second squared. Like hopefully if you blank on units, you're clever enough to go find them somewhere else in the quiz or the test, right? again. Oh. Half mark, half mark, half mark, half mark. D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. What are they asking me to get by itself here, Maxine? Why is that so tough? Because there's more than one t. In fact, there's a t and a t squared. If they were both t's, I could gather like terms. Or if they're both t squareds, I could gather like terms and turn these into a single solitary t. But here, I can't. So, what do? Well, grade 12s, you actually know how to solve this using something called the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus a squared of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Grade 11s, you'll learn that this year. But for now, I have to assume that you can't solve this. So if I give you this equation and I ask you to get the t by itself, something else must be a zero. What's a zero in this question? Because VI is zero, this whole thing vanishes, and you end up with a modified equation of d equals AT squared over 2. Or you could write it as d equals 0.5 AT squared. I don't care. But now how many t's do I have, Maxine? Woohoo! I can get the t by itself. I'm going to times by 2, divide by a. That would give me 2 times d over a equals t squared. How do I get rid of a squared? Or if I use this version, it would be d divided by 0.5a equals t squared. How do I get rid of a squared? Square root. Those are identical equations. It's going to be the square root of 2 times 240 divided by 10. Can I do that in my head? Maybe. It's going to be 480 divided by 10. It's going to be square root of 48. Just below 7, 6.9 something. Let's see, 2 times 240 divided by 10. Square root of that. 6.93. And it's a time, seconds. As before, half mark for that. Half mark for getting the t by itself. Half mark for the numbers. Half mark for the answer. So, is it ever wise to leave a question completely blank? I'm hoping you can at least figure out which equation. Even if you can't take it the rest of the way. Don't leave it blank. Yeah? Number 7. D equals bracket VI plus VF times T over 2. This is a really tricky one. What do I want to get by itself? The t. Okay. What side is the t on? The right. What's going to drop down like a domino? Yep. What's that 2 doing to the t? So how will I move it over? What's that bracket doing to the t? So how will I move the bracket over? That equals t. And now that I've moved that bracket to the bottom, is this a fraction? Is there more than one thing on the bottom? There's implied brackets around the bottom. You can write them, it's not wrong, but a math nerd knows there are brackets there because that's what the big fraction bar means. So it's going to be 2 times 2400 divided by 5.5 plus 20. Bracket 2 times 2400, close bracket, divided by bracket 5.5 plus 20. Y'all get 188? Point blah blah, 188? Units, it's a time, so seconds. And a half mark for each of those steps if you got the 188 seconds wrong. Last one. Ooh, same equation. But now I'm getting the VI by itself. The VI is inside the brackets, and BEDMAS means I'll deal with the brackets last. The first thing that I would do, well, the D would drop down like a domino. What's the T doing to the bracket? Multiplying, so divide by T. What's the 2 doing to the bracket? So times by T. That would give you this. What's the VF doing to the VI? What's the VF doing to the VI? How will I move the VF over then? When I do that, I'll get this. I'll get 2 times D over T, not inside the fraction, after the fraction. That's where the VF minus VF is going to go, because it's not being divided by T, so it doesn't go into the fraction. That equals VI. It's going to look like this. 2 times 120 divided by 12 minus 24. I think I can do this in my head. Yeah, it's going to be 20 minus 24. Is the answer negative 4? Or am I wrong? Am I wrong? I think I'm right. Is it not negative 4? Better type it in, Mr. Dewick. Yeah, negative 4. So if you didn't get negative 4, I'll even go negative 4.0 meters per second, you probably accidentally, the most common mistake is kids extend that fraction line and they divide that negative 24 by the 12. It's not being the VF, once we move it over, it just gets tacked on to the end, because right now it's not being times by the T. We moved the T over already. Can you give yourself a score, please, out of 16? 1-6, please. If you need to lawyer with me, now is the time.